All right, everybody, welcome back to Sam's Army, episode 2.270. We got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to start out with Copa America, the good, the bad, and the very ugly. Then we will transition seamlessly into the post-Berhalter era of U.S. men's national team. And finally, we'll put a bow on Euro 2024. And then we'll do a quick rest of the world with Hit and Quit at Minuteman and some US Open Cup love. And finally, stoppage time featuring everyone's favorite segment, GOAWs. Now, time to welcome in this week's panel of distinguished beauties. We will start with Tyler Terrens. Question for you. Rank these in order. American Airlines, United Airlines, Delta Airlines.
Delta, Frontier, Spirit, United, American. It's recency bias. I will say I sent you guys the video, but everybody gets the text messages from the do not reply number whenever there's something going wrong with your flight, and I just responded with a fuck you to a number that I knew didn't have a warm body behind it, but I just needed to get something out.
Listen, who has not done that? I've been very guilty of that at certain times. So I'm not throwing stones from this glass house on that. And it does. It feels like a little nice to just give a big FU to the man who's screwing you over. Okay. I'm keeping these intros quick, right? So Tommy, give a letter grade to Declan Rice for his performance at the Euros.
C plus.
Okay, that's fairly genuine, fairly honest.
What would you give a grade for the leader of a dysfunctional midfield?
Yeah. It can't all be on his
it's not, but he's the base of it.
Okay. All right. We'll get more into that probably in just a little bit. Finally, Mitchell Goulet, aka Overtime Mitch. I can't remember if I asked you about this last time, but I asked you anyway. Give us the highlights of your Barcelona bender.
Oh, I can't give you the top one or two highlights. No, you did ask me this. I don't know. I just love the city. I was able to play with some locals. Got recognized when I was at a soccer event. Not my face personally, but somebody knew Overtime FC in the wild. That was cool. And then separately from that, but somewhat related, I watched the Messi Canada game and I saw him score right before he got injured in that semifinal. And we're going to go into what MetLife needs to fix if we're going to host a World Cup, but it was sick. So that's also a highlight. Barcelona.
Wow. I noticed you said if we are going to host a World Cup. That's interesting.
It was just there was so much shit that could have gone wrong that didn't, but then ended up going wrong in the final. The pitch was god awful, transportation there was terrible. I don't know. I'm not just going to complain about it. We'll get into it.
Okay. Before we get into that, because that's actually going to be the first thing on the docket here, just a quick thing. Big thank you to, I know there a handful or probably more than that of the guys who sent in resumes for our intern search. So we're looking for somebody who, can handle socials specifically and video editing. Those are the two big ones. I'm sure there'll be other things. There'll be pluses and minuses. Obviously, we'll work you into the show as well as we can and all that stuff. But we need some help because obviously my skills only go so far, to put it quickly and gently. Now we'll move on to, by the way, just so email me or send me DMs or any of these guys. Just send us your resume and sort of tell us a little about you, and we'll get on that as soon as we can. We need to get this locked up over the next couple of weeks. Now we'll move on. Copa America. Wow. Well, the storylines and the narratives really took a turn in the last 24 hours about this tournament. There was always some sort of background noise about, the fields being not so great and, the host. And then there was the Uruguay, Colombia scuffle in the stands that happened, say, 4 or 5 days ago at this point. But then the final, and things went off the rails in a big, bad way. So before we can even talk about the game, other than to say congratulations to Argentina for lifting the cup again, we got to talk about the off the field and sort of on the field situation that doesn't have to do with soccer. So everybody probably knows, if you're listening to this, you know what happened last night. The crowd control issues just were out of control. This is not the first time we've seen this. We've seen this on every continent of the world. We saw it at Wembley with England and France a couple years ago. We've seen a fair amount of times in South America, obviously. This was bad. This was really bad. The visuals, the optics are terrible for everybody involved. CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, US Soccer. Honestly, I took it personally myself, the way that it went down so poorly, and sort of American fans. And, the online discourse at this point is all about, the US is not ready to host a World Cup, which it is mind-boggling for so many different ways and so many different reasons. Mitch, what'd you come away with, thinking after, the shit we watched yesterday?
We are more than 2 years away organizationally from hosting an efficient World Cup. That's scary. People were in danger last night, from anywhere from like fire hazards to fighting to overcrowding to not checking what people are bringing into the stadium. Like, that shit's so dangerous. And we've seen from the semifinal how hot some of those games can get and the temperature. So I don't know. I think there needs to be like almost a third party that deals with these games and the production of them and like the security behind them, and not CONMEBOL or even like US Soccer or FIFA. Just somebody that actually knows how to handle it. I was with you. I feel embarrassed that like that happened. This was a final. This was the first time that we've hosted Copa America in a while, and that's gonna be kind of a stain on the legacy of this tournament in particular, which sucks.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Berhalter's legacy in a little bit, but in terms of the legacy of this Copa, I mean, I can't. I'd be shocked if there's anything that anybody remembers other than, yes, Argentina won it, but that's like 1B, and 1A is just this catastrophic disaster that happened outside of Hard Rock Stadium. Tyler, so one thing I will add, or sort of add my thoughts on, I disagree with you that we are not prepared or ready to host a World Cup. I think that we've hosted the biggest, events in the world for years and years and years, including a World Cup in 1994, including a Copa America in the past. I think that there's one big difference between a lot of those events, basically all those events, and this one event, and that's CONMEBOL and them taking over the responsibility for operations and security. And I don't have any like real evidence for this other than because they haven't really said anything, and I doubt they're going to say anything. But it sounds like, and from whatever I know, from all I know about CONMEBOL, they basically skimped on security and wanted a bigger paycheck. I'm unless they come out and say, or somebody comes out and says something other than that, I'm just going to assume that's the case. I don't think this is on US Soccer so much. I don't think it's on Inter Miami or CONCACAF. And CONMEBOL said they wanted responsibility, and they fucked this up big time. And you're right, it was scary, like with all those kids that were trying to get in the stadium and stuff. And the fact that there wasn't an incident at the game, like nobody actually brought a weapon in or anything like that, like I'm kind of shocked. I'm happy about it, obviously. Anyway, Tyler, take it over. What are your thoughts here?
Retweeting on everything you guys said. I also think that this is a byproduct of how expensive the tickets were throughout the entire tournament, right? I mean, like, people who probably only get to see their country play where they live, right? Because the South American contingency that lives in the Miami area alone, let alone South Florida as a whole, and it's astronomical. Like, stuff that people who like grew up in the Northeast or grew up in the Midwest, or anybody who's listening, unless you've experienced it down there, you don't really understand. So like, that's the one moment they just basically got locked out of the game, for lack of a better phrase, because people had to pay $2,000 for a ticket. And then the people who did pay for the ticket didn't even get in. There's a great video from Max Bredos of people showing their Ticketmaster digital stub, and, they did pay for their ticket. So this is a disaster. I agree with you. CONMEBOL being in charge of it is never a good thing, but it's also, there's a level of underestimation from Hard Rock in terms of the, fervent nature of the fans, the passion, and not really being prepared. But above all else, I mean, God forbid there's any one of those people who are storming the gates and destroying entrances and ruining escalators and vandalizing the whole thing. Shame on you, because like no matter how badly you want to get into the game, people, putting people's lives at risk, children who were there, Stu Holden talking about how like, his wife and his 8-year-old son went to the game and it was the first time when they were at a game that he felt, he was scared for their safety. Just disgusting above all else. But the buck has to stop somewhere, and it's probably with CONMEBOL. And I agree. Like I've dealt with CONCACAF very, very intimately, and I know that federation and CONMEBOL is supposed to be 10 times worse. CONCACAF is only concerned about their margins. I can only imagine what CONMEBOL is up to in that regard. So just really, really bad on all fronts. But if it's FIFA and the United States, and then using this as a learning opportunity, I do think that 2026 will be fine. I am confident in that.
It will be. It is a good lesson. Yeah, I am not worried about our ability to host the World Cup. I will say there's a lot of blame to go around. There has to be some fan accountability. I mean, the fact that you had people just acting like crazy, yes, some of that is because they're just so passionate. I get that, but it's a double-edged sword, and some of that's on the ticket prices. But okay, once you get in there, do you really got to fucking ruin an escalator? Do you got to, do all this other? There were a lot of things over the top. So there's some fan accountability there. CONCACAF and US Soccer are on the hook too. They're not blameless here. They signed off on this. They agreed to allow CONMEBOL to, handle this, and they know CONMEBOL as well as we do. They probably better. So the fact they just sort of, they can't, wipe their hands clean and say, this wasn't us. You signed off on this, and Hard Rock signed, they're hosting. They should have been like, we are not comfortable with this. We are not comfortable with the amount of security and the layers of security. So there's a lot of blame to place here, but I think the buck stops ultimately with CONMEBOL. Tommy, any thoughts on the disaster that was the pregame and I guess in-game off-field stuff?
I mean, I was at the World Cup in Qatar at their biggest stadium with 20 to 25K more than that, and they have 3 levels of checkpoints before you even get to the stadium. This is stuff that FIFA requires.
Yeah.
So this stuff actually exists. It's not like they're creating something new for this tournament or the next World Cup. So that stuff will obviously be in place for the 26 World Cup, but
it's crazy. I don't know this, but just looking from all the videos on social media, which are everywhere, it looked like there was one layer of security. That's it. Once you get past the gate, you're in. And so everybody's like, well, I'm gonna get in that game, and this is where we get. All right. Any thoughts on the game itself, which Argentina won 1-0 after extra time?
Objectively more fun than the Euro final.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's a hot take. I'm so with you on the first half.
Second half of the Euros was electric.
Yeah.
So it was. I, as a whole, enjoyed the Copa final more than the Euro final.
You're an agent of chaos, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised, baby.
That's insane that you actually think that was fun on the whole.
Yep.
There was a point when I stayed up to watch the entire thing. I was like, I already saw Shaqiri. This isn't fun. Why am I staying up to watch this? What am I gaining from this? Like there was no added value to my life in watching the end of that game.
I was a little disappointed that Colombia didn't win. I was kind of rooting for them just from watching them over the course of the tournament. And Messi, listen, I will never really root against Messi, but I was hoping Colombia would actually take that down. Obviously, the storylines with Angel Di Maria and his sort of retirement game, and Messi actually getting hurt. And by the way, that injury that he did, like, it was kind of non-contact, his ankle. He just tried to cut a cross too sharply. I mean, I've done that. Like, it was just like, man, that's what old people do, right? You can't quite get around a ball the way you want, and he just looked like slightly human, I guess, which that stinks. But anyway, the game itself, I have nothing to say about it. I was just like, other than Colombia not winning, disappointed me just a little bit. It was, I mean, it was Uruguay. I mean, it was Argentina, Colombia. Just kind of, I'm not throwing haymakers. They were just kind of, I don't know, dancing. They're doing a little dance. Anything else about the tournament itself? I know there's one thing like
Mazel tov to Canada. Big mazel tov.
yes,
Yeah.
good shout. Good shout.
Yeah.
Mazel tov to Canada. I was also gonna say pretty much the same thing about James Rodriguez. Like I feel like he's been sort of forgotten about. And for good reason. Like he just hasn't really produced over the last however many years. But then you put him in a Columbia jersey and he makes magic happen. I think it was 6 assists he had over the course of the tournament and a goal. He probably made himself some extra money there. So congrats to James.
What a spectacular brand of player that like he falls into, Memo Ochoa falls into, Shaqiri falls into, that they don't give two shits about their club football, but once they put on their nation's kit, they're the best player on the pitch. It's one of my favorite genres of players, and James really embodied that this tournament.
That's such a fascinating case study because there's like the old adage of you stop maturing as like when you reach the peak of your fame. So with that in mind, like if I was one of them and I put on my best show ever at the Cup, at the Euros, and then like I'm asked to go play club and do it every single day, it's like no, like I already reached the mountaintop. I was the star of a World Cup. Like you can't ask me to play hard for 365 days a year when I'm gonna do it once every 4 years. So
right.
This sounds like just a quintessential standing / excusing of Shaqiri's performance for the Fire right there.
Oh no, oh absolutely not. I am the first one to jump down. He is the worst teammate. I can confidently say that now. He'll never play another game for that club. He is the worst. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying from a psychological standpoint, it like kind of makes sense a little bit.
Yeah. Would you throw Paul Pogba in that category?
I can't point to multiple international tournaments that he's dominated, so I'd say no. But
He's balled out at Juve.
But he's also balled out at Juve.
Yeah. That's kind of you really need to have a steep drop off from country to club to be in that category for me. I wouldn't put Pogba there.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on. Copa America 2024. Let's put that in the rearview mirror. Maybe learn some lessons from it, and move on. But sort of tied to it is the U.S. men's national team. And we already talked about, crashing and burning. Red card aided, unfortunately, for Timmy Weah. But the big news over the course of the week was that, U.S. Soccer announced Berhalter will not be brought back. So question for you, Tommy. What is Gregg Berhalter's legacy as U.S. men's national team coach?
I don't think it's set right now. I think a lot of it has to do with how the same core group performs at the World Cup, because then you'll retroactively look at it and he moved the goalposts forward kind of thing. And I think that would be the general consensus, where they are more consistently in the conversation as a top 15 nation, and the individual talent is performing at a better club level. But I don't know how much the narrative around the U.S. has changed right now. So yeah, I don't know if it's warranted a legacy at this moment.
Okay. It is hard to sort of say that when we're a couple days removed. There's two, in my mind, there's two Gregg Berhalter almost mini epochs, I guess. So there was the first cycle, which I think I would call a relative success. I think he did well. He won a bunch of trophies. We got out of the group. And then the second epoch is not so good. That was not good. I think the definitive, I'm willing to say that it's definitive error to bring him back, which, whatever. Anyway.
But to like say that he did well, right? I would argue that he did what he needed to do, or the group did what they needed to do.
Like that's a better way to say it.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And I think that's just a byproduct of Nations League as well. Like you haven't seen as many of those challenging games.
That's a better way to put it.
And I think that yes, bringing him back was a definitive mistake. Anybody who thought otherwise, I think, was drowning in a tub of optimism, which I don't blame you for. And I sort of let it slide while I was drowning myself in that, because I wanted something to look forward to, and I wanted a coach to inspire me. I think, one, you look at Gregg, he was an Olympic coach on steroids. When he took this team over, the core of this group was all under 23 years old with a couple players who were overages, and you just happened to beat the teams that were in front of you, including catching Mexico in a bad 5 or 6 years of existence. And then I also think that Matt Crocker and the Federation, and I don't know exactly who's to blame here, but Gregg's job hinged upon one game. So you never really were confident in the decision. And it goes back to what everybody was saying was, who was available when they hired him? Nobody. So they defaulted to him. And apparently Jesse Marsh was treated like trash throughout the entire process per his comments. But we got bounced from Copa America due to one game against Panama. And Gregg got fired because we didn't get out of the group. So therefore, Gregg's job this entire time was hinging upon one game. And if that's the case, then Crocker and the Federation are not doing their job properly. But tying that back in, it also means that maybe the coaches who we wanted or the coaches who we desired were not available at the time or had no interest.
Are they available now?
I think more are available now.
By the way, this talk of Hervé Renard, what has he done?
He's won
just
some AFCONs.
Like,
I think I think the reason people talk about him is because he's ridiculously good looking. Like, I think that's the best thing he's got going for him.
I think hiring a DILF could really do wonders for the Federation. I think it would bring in the casual fan more than like Fox coverage, you know?
And when you say casual fan, you're really just talking about casual one gender.
Casual female heterosexual fans, yes. But like, I don't know.
Or our homosexual brothers and
There you go. There you go.
Who might be a fan of the DILF. But I'm not here to pass judgment one way or the other. All I'm saying is that, yes, he's very good looking, but from a resume standpoint, he doesn't really get my nipples tingling. If we're going to go back around.
That's fair.
Okay, so aesthetically, he does get your nipples tingling, but resume-wise, not so much.
He is like devilishly good looking.
Okay, so let's move on from the Berhalter era. That's in the past, and I do think Tommy is right in saying that we can't really sort of pin down his legacy yet. It will depend on how things go from here. Okay.
Mildly disagree.
Okay.
That I do think that you need to stack him up against what's to come. However, in terms of what he was able to do with this quote unquote golden generation, which again, I'm done calling it that. I don't know how many times I've ever called it that. But he did the bare minimum when the bar was already on the floor after not qualifying for the last World Cup. That's all that he did. He got to the top of CONCACAF until he didn't during the qualifying tournament where Canada emerged victorious in that. We laid an egg on the road against Canada and laid an egg against them at home. I think that game was in Nashville. That was the Weston McKennie thing. But yeah, for me, like, his legacy is he was a 6-year caretaker. He was never going to be the guy for 26. He got us back to where we already should have been.
You don't think he was ever going to be the guy for 26? Like, we make it out of the group stage here?
When I envision who's going to be on the sideline, it's an amorphous figure that has no face right now, and it hasn't had a face for years. I never thought he was going to be throwing bounce passes on American soil during the World Cup. I just never thought that. I just was like,
yeah.
I was like, this guy is going to be the one who's in charge in the biggest tournament the country's ever participated in. This guy, and that's not a knock on who he is as a coach, because I do think he's going to be successful at the club level whenever he takes his next job, most likely the Chicago Fire. But he just, from an international standpoint, and like anybody who wants Wilfried Nancy, yeah, Wilfried Nancy is probably 10 times more of a coach than Gregg will ever be, but it's the same thing, a very distinct style at a club level. Like, Ralph Ragnick works because most of it's revolving around pressing, and you can get guys to buy into a press pretty easily, and they're all familiar with him. But like possession style, building out of the back and getting everybody on the same page when they don't play that way at their club, or they play 10 different ways at their individual clubs, like, you're setting yourself up for failure in my mind.
So this person that doesn't have a face, that will be on the sideline for 2026, does this person have an accent? A foreign accent?
It's like when I hear them talk, they're mumbled. I can't understand them.
Mhm.
It's not because they have an accent. Like it's so but that's how it is right now. Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue, and that's like kind of an issue. But it would have been even better if BJ Callahan had stayed in charge for 6 to 8 more months, gone through whatever more meaningless games we were going to play in leading up to Copa America, and then we got the coach 6 months before that tournament started. That would have been better than just hiring Gregg because he was the only one available.
And because players really wanted him, right? I mean,
Who cares?
Yeah,
Who
how
cares?
much does that
Corbin Lloyd said
weigh
that.
into a federation's decision?
how much
How
should it, or how
likely-
much did it? Because I know it did.
I guess that's both my questions, but like how much did it? That's a question. How much should it? I don't think much at all. I think if you are a federation and your job is to get results, especially as a perceived top 15 nation in the world, how likable your coach is in the clubhouse is like here on the list of priorities that you should have. Yet that's kind of all we heard about. And part of that is due to the players. Part of that's the players backing him for like out of necessity. When he would face criticism, players would come out and it was, it was nice and it was heartwarming at the time. But looking back, it's like, yeah, that you're not backing him because of his results, though. You're backing him because of who he is as a person in the clubhouse. And that's all well and good, but I don't know, man. That doesn't put butts in seats.
No, it does not.
How
So
about, how
tell
about
me.
yeah, I disagree with this because he has gotten the results win percentage wise compared
Yes.
to
And
Yeah.
trophies wise.
You can have the same argument that you both have just brought up about Gareth Southgate as well. Like in some capacity with the likableness within the locker room, the aspect that he should never be the figurehead at a World Cup. Like people obviously viewed Southgate as a caretaker for a long time as well, and legit was a caretaker. So I think he's past both of those, in my opinion. But is it anything like more than that? I think you guys know how I feel about that. But yeah, I think it's slightly negative on that side.
Okay, so now moving forward. And it's funny you say that Gregg felt like a caretaker manager for 6 years. You're probably right on that. And I think it's just because of the way the hiring process went down and who his brother was and all that stuff. Like he came in under a cloud that he was never going to get out from under with a lot of fans. So now we have a chance to, I mean, I don't know who JT Batson or, Cindy Parlow Cohen's siblings are, but hopefully they're not in contention for the job. And by the way, I'm not actually saying that he got the job out of nepotism, but you can't erase that from the Twitter Roddy's world mind, right? Like the US soccer Twitter and the haters, the Gregg haters they were never going to forgive him. There were people I talked to on Twitter that said we could win the World Cup and I still think he'll be a shitty coach. It's like, how is that even possible? Anyway, regardless. So now moving forward, let me give you some of the candidates and who have the highest odds right now. So right now, I believe the favorite is Wilfried Nancy at plus 600. He's followed closely by 3 names: Javier Aguirre, Matias Almeida, and Steve Cherundolo. And for a little while, I think people thought Steve Cherundolo was like the number 1 option.
Almeida would be a disaster.
Why is he even on this list? What has he done?
Nothing.
Anyway, other than below that, you got David Wagner, Jim Curtin, and then things go a little haywire from there. Even with David Wagner and Jim Curtin is Steven Gerrard, followed by closely Vincent Kompany, Didier Deschamps, and Frank Lampard.
Who the fuck makes these odds?
I have no idea. This would be Odds
also
Sharks, maybe? I don't know.
You could parlay that with Vincent Company getting fired within the next 6 months, because that's what's going to need to happen. So you take the parlay on him getting fired and then taking the U.S. job.
It's kind of crazy. And you'll notice some of the names not on here. No Mourinho, no Klopp, none of the
No
names.
Pat Noonan. If you're going to look at Cherundolo, you have to look at Noonan. He has arguably been the best American coach in MLS for the past 3 years. And I think that his style would translate. I don't know if he would ever want the job, but I do think that if you're going to look at Cherundolo, and I don't think that this has to be a foreign coach. I do think that American can get this done. And keep in mind, Lionel Scaloni had no coaching experience whatsoever when he took over Argentina in 2018. Zero. Argentina U20s, and that's it. So this person doesn't need to have a glowing resume. Obviously, it would be great. But Pat Noonan, for me, if you're going to interview Steve Cherundolo with intent, and like you can kind of already tell from his comments that he's definitely already had a conversation, you should have the same exact conversation with Pat Noonan. He's been arguably, for my money, consistency-wise, like he's been the best coach in MLS for the past 2 years.
I think I 100% agree. I actually like both of those candidates for it, and partly because of the way their teams play. And I think it'd be a better fit for the national team. And I 100% agree that it doesn't have to be a household name. And I would actually prefer it not be a household name. I would like the point of discussion for the next 2 years to be the 11 players on the field at any given moment, not the coach on the sideline. That would be so amazing for U.S. soccer.
That's a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about, that the casual fan now knows or knew about Gregg Berhalter more than they knew and heard about players and what happened on the field for particularly this Copa America cycle. But even before that, when there was just so much conversation about him, I really second that I would love for the coach to be an afterthought in how we talk about the team, and for the main focus to be the players and the play on the field. That's a really good point.
And with all of that said, as much as that you can pin a lot of this on Greg, the players have to take responsibility. Christian went out with that Instagram post saying you deserve better. Like, we deserve way better, to be completely honest. Like, it was not good enough all around, from Serginho Dest in the qualifiers against Trinidad and Tobago, Tim Weah losing his mind. Like, it has not been good enough. And the players continue to get a pass because everybody thinks that they should be playing at this level because of where they play club-wise. But I've said it 10 times on this podcast. I'll say it again. The U.S. have a problem right now with guys coming into U.S. men's national team camp and performing significantly worse than they do with their club, both from like a body language standpoint, discipline standpoint, finishing, like the whole thing. Christian's really the only one whose level never really drops. Tyler Adams isn't healthy enough to make a judgment on him. Weston McKennie, I think it's pretty steady, but steadily slightly above average. Like, he's the only one. So the level's gotta be taken to a different notch. And the coach is going to have something to do with that, but it's impossible to not look at the players here and not put a lot of blame on them. And I agree, like, we should just be focused on them.
I'll second this point and also loop it back to Mitch's favorite genre of player. The top national teams have players that severely overperform for their national team, whether it's they enjoy playing there, their sense of national pride. Do we have any of those right now?
I mean, I would definitely throw Pulisic in there. Seems like he really cares.
I'm not saying
I'm not saying the other ones don't care, by the way. I don't mean
you're
to
saying somebody who from a club level doesn't necessarily stack up against everybody else, but overperforms for the U.S.
He just had 20 to 30 goals and assists in Serie A for AC Milan. I'm saying, and for him to overperform that level, he would have to have been like Golden Boot for like 3 tournaments in a row. Like, that's where I'm more at. Like, I know these guys probably have, a lot of them, like a strong sense of national pride, but do we have guys that are like severely overperforming the way they play for their club because of the environment that we create for players in the national team, or just their sense of identity with it?
None that come to mind.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point.
Who was the last one you throw into that category? If we've
last person, that's a good question. I mean, I'm just thinking of like Donovan Dempsey, I'm thinking like that top players, they all perform pretty well for the club and for the country. If I remember correctly. I don't know. Listen, back to the coach. Okay. Like what makes me sad about this question is that there's a sizable contingent of US soccer fans who it does not matter the name, the face. They only want a foreign accent. That's all they care about almost. Like you need, like, yeah, there's some brand name recognition that goes along with that. I don't think that they would just jump on board with somebody coming from like the Bundesliga 3 or something. I don't think that's what they're looking for. But like there is a huge contingent that if they hire anybody from the US and, you know, likely MLS, Noonan, Cherundolo, I don't know if you'd throw Wilfried Nancy in there, but you know, those two for sure. Jim Curtin, another one. They are going to immediately and instinctively hate him. They're going to be like, you know, immediately. Mitch, you disagree?
I just don't think we should be trying to appease those fans.
Of course not. No, of course not. This just makes me sad though in advance that we're gonna, because one of the things about Gregg that, you know, really sort of was a downer, and Tyler and I talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago, is that like it didn't matter how well he was doing, how well the team did. It just didn't matter. We always were going to have these people who were constantly negative about the U.S. men's national team. And the great thing about the men's and the women's national team is that we all get together and root for one team, and we're all positive. We're all sort of excited. And it just hasn't been like that. It just has not been like that for a while now. So let's say best case scenario. What's your, Mitch, who, like, you know, you include Klopp, anybody who doesn't have a job or may be fired sometime soon. What's your best case scenario?
Klopp, I mean, 3 days ago, Klopp was my best case scenario. That would be, but he's been pretty clear that he's not interested in the gig, and that's okay. We're on to the next one.
That July 4th Instagram post, though, that got my, I'll be honest, that just got,
he knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, it got me just a little bit. I had 0%, like 0% sort of, you know, thought about it, and then that post, I was like, maybe.
It's a little flirt at the bar. You're never gonna go home with that person, but it doesn't hurt to flirt a little bit, you know?
True.
No, that would have been nice. Best case scenario right now, I like Wilfried Nancy. I really do. I think he would bring a more distinct look and tactics to the team. I don't know if he's interested in the job. You said he's the odds-on favorite.
According to this, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they could do the funniest fucking thing ever and just rehire Gregg after a third-party investigation. That could be. I would appreciate that for the bit that it would be. Or I don't know. Yeah, I want the play on the field to take priority over the name on the coach's slot.
Okay, but for the record, you said Nancy. Tyler?
We could guarantee a semifinal appearance in 26, but look like England while we do it. Would we take it?
Yes.
Like,
yeah, I think we're not at the point where we can say no to that. We're not in it, you know, the soccer culture evolution.
But I think that's the difference between Berhalter and Southgate, is that neither of them play particularly appealing ball, but Southgate was able to get a handful of results that Berhalter was not.
For sure. I mean, he made two Euro finals.
Hold on a second. Berhalter was brought in under the assumption that we were going to play appeasing soccer. That was the whole point. That's why we hired him.
And it didn't turn out that way.
Because you can't do that at the international level unless you are Spain.
Yeah.
Or Germany.
Not. Chris Richards is not Emerick Laporte. It's not.
That's not a shot at Chris Richards. Tommy? Wait, actually, hold on. Tyler, did you actually answer the question?
Jurgen Klopp.
Okay. Okay. Tommy, who's your this is the pie in the sky?
Yeah,
you know,
no, Klopp is my pie in the sky. I totally agree. He is somehow that big name while also taking a step back and kind of putting the focus on the field. I think he would actually manage to do both of those things very well. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm also over the idea of a high-level tactician at the club level for American soccer. I think, like Tyler said, unless you're a country that lives and breathes a single style of play, and basically your national team coach is basically like serving a presidential term from World Cup to Euros or World Cup to World Cup, and it's just doesn't matter who's in there. You're going to play the same exact way. You're probably best not going that way.
You know something? We fucked up on our guy. Probably was Jesse Marsh.
I actually totally agree with that. Yeah.
And I'm not and yeah, there's a little bit of recency bias, but the way that he addresses his team, the fact that he is going to go out there with a specific style, you talk about a coach who's going to care and a coach who's going to literally bring it every single time. And I'm not saying Gregg didn't, but Jesse's demeanor and his personality is something that the guys I think would have resonated with. And I think we totally whiffed on that. Totally whiffed on that.
If you watched Copa America and said one of these coaches has been with these guys for 6 years and the other one's been with them for 6 weeks max, 2 weeks, you would go the opposite way. Just based on Copa America.
Yeah.
The sort of barometer on Jesse Marsh and sort of where people see him has been so high and low over the last, whatever, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, like when he got fired from Leeds, like everybody was completely out.
He was a lightning rod that fielded a lot of the criticism.
Tried something and it didn't work. It was as simple as that.
Yeah. There was a lot of reasons that Leeds season didn't work, but he kind of fielded all of that criticism. Is there a world? So he said, this is Jesse Marsh mentioned that he would not be interested in the U.S. men's national team job unless there was, I'm paraphrasing, like a big shakeup in the organization itself and how the federation was run. Is there a world in which we come back with our tail between our legs and say, hey, sorry we mistreated you. Can you save our federation? Like, is that...
But who?
I would love to know who he was talking about.
Is it Cindy Parlow-Cone?
I don't know. I have no idea.
All of them.
I would love to know who he was talking about. Was it Batson? Yeah. Was it Crocker? Was it Parlow-Cone? I don't know. I have no idea. So it would be the ultimate just big brother move if we just said, you know what, actually, Jesse, yeah, we'll take you and just like hire him away from Canada. That would be, I mean, I don't really have anything against Canada. I was rooting for Canada. I like Canada, but that would be kind of funny just from a content.
The resources.
So who's your best guess now? Quickly, who's your best guess on who will be ultimately named the coach? Tyler, you go first.
Trundolo.
Retweet.
Yep.
Everybody's on Trundolo at this point, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. That probably would be my guess too. I would like to see somebody like Jim Curtin get the job. I feel like he could do a good job. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Hopefully we find out somewhat soon. We'll move on. Euros. So it's done. That was quite a tournament. The memes that were flowing about like Euros versus Copa were funny. They were very funny and very accurate, I think, for a lot of the time. But at the end of the tournament, as we got on towards the games that I was only able to watch sort of some of and mostly highlights because I was in the Arctic Circle chasing big northern pikes. They kind of got a lot more conservative, a lot more sort of English French style, and a lot less. Unless Spain was involved, the game sucked. I guess that's a little overstatement because some of the teams, like who was it, Turkey and Austria, or was it Turkey? Yeah, those two. That game was incredible. But credit to Spain. I thought they were the best team throughout the entire tournament. I thought they were definitely the best team against England on the day on Sunday. They took it home. England did get an equalizer, which turned it into that second half was I had a good time watching the second half. I did not have a very good time watching the first half, but the fact that Spain got that early goal in the second half, it's like, okay, all right, we're moving in the right direction. Then England drew, leveled it up, and then Spain took it home. What was sort of your takeaway? Let's focus quickly on the final itself. Mitch, what are your sort of thoughts there?
England tried to play the majority of the game and win the game in the midfield. The story of their tournament was that they just didn't create chances and they relied on a couple worldies, one penalty. They looked like a team all tournament that were going to not lose. They did not look like a team that was ever going to win. apart from, a handful of the group stage games. But I agree. I think Spain was the best team all tournament. I mean, stock in Lamine Yamal. I've never seen a player rise stock so quickly in one tournament. That kid has the world at his feet right now, and I think he's going to continue with the trajectory he's on. Nico Williams also crazy, crazy stock this tournament. He's had some big offers thrown around for him, but apparently he's comfortable with his club right now. Dude is just like living in his home Basque country and playing alongside his brother, making $20 million a year. So like, why would he move? But yeah, Spain. My big takeaway is that like Spain are the best footballing nation in the world right now. Between the Women's World Cup and this Euros, like
it's hard to argue that when you throw the
Yeah.
women's side in as well,
Yeah.
then because then you got to take Argentina out essentially.
I think as a whole, like just Spain runs football right now.
Yes, they were entertaining too. They
Yeah.
were a fun team to watch. Tommy, anything?
I second all of that about Spain as a nation and just the way they play. One of my like small favorite things that they do, and they did it against France. I think they did it against Germany as well, and definitely in the final, is when they go up 2-1, they don't like sit back and protect the lead.
So glad you said that.
They're pressing the center backs, they're pressing the goalkeeper, and Pickford's like launching a ball with the like on the half volley with his left foot like 3 times in the last 10 minutes. And it's for me, that is all you need to like know about them playing to win and always playing with like a certain mentality versus what Mitch said about like England playing not to lose. That was the whole difference for me. And I love that the Basque country and Catalan country are leading Spain to victories.
By the way, the Nico Williams thing, like I think he would already be on a metaphorical plane to Barcelona if they weren't poor right now. Like he's the type of player that they would just pay whatever they had to pay for, and he would be on the team already. But the fact they're in dire financial straits, a little different situation. England, France. What was the biggest disappointment of the Euros for you, Tyler?
I think everybody except for Spain and all the major powerhouses except for Spain. All of them were a disappointment.
Even Germany?
Germany, I can get behind. Germany.
That was my biggest disappointment is that Spain and Germany had to play each other so early.
Yeah. That was the final. That was absolutely the final.
And I hope that Spain winning it is a shout to the rest of the world and their federations. Like, this is how you win a tournament.
Yeah.
With the mentality that you go to play to win and you don't sit in. And Tommy, I played, Champions League football too. And by Champions League, I mean Division III in the Liberty League for Hobart College. And when you are constantly in the middle of a game, flip-flopping your mentality in terms of how you want to play, it's impossible. Meanwhile, Spain, and I was thinking to myself, right before the Cole Palmer goal, I'm like sitting on the plane, angry at the world, but excited that I'm watching the game and they actually had it on. Trying not to yell at flight attendants for getting in my face and offering me if I want a cup of water while, England's trying to press for an equalizer. And I'm like, fuck, I'm like, Spain is really exposing themselves to an equalizer here. And what does that say about all of us and how much we've been conditioned to not think that what Spain is doing is the right thing?
Yeah.
Like, why is that my initial instinct? Like, oh my God, they're gambling. Look at these lunatics. And I'm like, fuck, they've got me to drink the Kool-Aid. Like if I was a coach and without actually thinking about it, my initial instinct, if we were up a goal in a final, would be, come on, bring all the pressure on. Let's see if it works. But like, they did it their own way and they won. And I hope that the rest of the federations and the guys who, were responsible for this bullshit that we could call a major tournament. I mean, just a bunch of pansies, really. All of you are afraid to make a mistake. Oh, well, if I don't win, my country's going to fire me. Okay, so what? You're probably going to get fired anyway because there's only one winner. So you might as well go down swinging. Like, I thought that cowards, the lot of them outside of Spain and Germany.
That was a not so veiled threat, put down of France, by the way, like specifically based on your
France were my biggest disappointment of the tournament. Oh my God. I can't hear about how you have the best player in the world and how you have all this quality and depth, and then you go through how many games without scoring a goal from open play? 5, 6 maybe. It just never looked like the team that the world told us they were, with all of this world-class talent at all 11 positions. And, you know, I just, and they played boring too. And we've all seen that the players that they put out on the field have the ability to play an exciting brand, and they just didn't. They refused to. And to go back to what Tyler said, that like Spain just epitomized, that's how you go out and win a tournament. You don't not lose every game, you go win every game. Spain, first team to go 7 of 7 in a Euros, like, because they went out and they took the game to whoever they were playing.
Can I can I equate this whole thing? Like I was talking to Dean Smith of Charlotte, name drop real quick, ahead of the Charlotte Columbus game this week. And he was just like, yeah, like I didn't really watch much of Copa America. Like I watched England, like, but I just don't really like international football. I was like, good for you, dude. You're saying what we're all thinking. International football, as of late, for me, particularly major tournaments, is like a bachelor party when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. The concept of it and the lead up to it is really, really exciting, and that's almost better than what actually goes on. By the end of it, you are tired, you're exhausted. There's just a lot going on without really anything going on. And like, what's the best part of it is looking back at the 2 or 3 videos that you took as opposed to like the entire thing. And I feel like that's what international football is right now. I'm more the lead up and the buzz entering it and the flight going to the bachelor party is more exciting than what actually goes on there. Again, this is bachelor party, late 20s, early 30s, when you've already done it a few times, and the whole thing. I'm not saying bachelor party in your mid 20s, because those are electric.
That's fair. That's a great analogy. The only thing I could think of when we were talking about Spain's mentality and sort of their philosophy on the field for always going for it, the only thing I could think of was Gregg Berhalter giving the 1-1 sign, because when Panama was
Do we
playing,
know for a fact that that's what he was doing? Could he have been saying, go
Yeah.
back?
No, I don't know. I don't know for a fact that's what it was.
No,
But
that
that
was
they
for sure.
they asked him about it. They asked him about it in the presser, and he was like, "I just wanted to give my guys the situational awareness." Or again, I'm paraphrasing, but
After he had already said that he didn't want to,
yeah,
yeah.
days prior, he was like, "No, that's not us." And in this situation, he was like, "Yeah, that was what I was doing."
that was unfortunate. That was
Yes.
an unfortunate visual that Fox caught on camera. Tommy, any thoughts to add there?
Yeah, I mean, you always see like different evolutions of soccer come from these major international tournaments. Finally, one of them is about how to win playing attractive soccer the whole time. So that's what I'm happy about, and I hope that trickles down. Because yeah, in the past it's just been like playing not to lose because it's so valuable to like stay in the tournament, an extra game.
Not to bring everything back to the U.S. men's national team, but that has been our MO for so long now, right?
Yeah.
We go up a goal and it can be Trinidad and Tobago at home, and we'll fucking, if we don't sit in, we at least take our foot off the gas. That is the one thing that has just made me it's been maddening. So the legacy of the Euros is Spain going for it and winning. That's actually a great legacy. Not overshadowed by some fucking crowd ridiculousness and all this other stuff. I like that. That's positive.
I have a question for the class. Is Alvaro Morata a top 10 Spanish striker of all time? After it's all said and done, will he be a top 10? I'm not saying top 5, top 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like his stats will certainly suggest he is.
Oh yeah. He has a lot of caps and a lot of big goals for that country.
Zlatan is pushing for him in Milan right now.
Yeah, didn't they say it was confirmed?
I think it's confirmed, yeah.
Have you read some of these articles that have come out this past week about him?
I saw some about him being a good teammate. I don't know what else.
Like, yeah, how all the Spanish guys are like, he's the best captain we've ever had.
Yeah, that's what I've seen as well.
He's still got a little boy haircut, but other than that, and I still hate him for, because he's Chelsea, but whatever. That's not his fault, I guess, even though it is. All right, there's the legacy on Euros. We'll finish up here with, well, not quite. we still got around the world. We got to give U.S. soccer a little love here. We're going to start out with the hit it and quit it Minuteman doing what he does and giving us the best that he's got for a good 60 seconds ish. Hit us with it.
Here for a good time, not a long time, baby. All right, let's start north of the border. Toronto FC picking up a big win over Jim Curtin, the Philadelphia Union, who have been struggling this season comparative to what we're used to seeing in Chester, Pennsylvania. We'll stay north of the border. CF Montreal, 1-0 winners over Atlanta United, and that was after they got bounced in the U.S. Open Cup. Stay tuned for a little, snuggle session, little pillow talk U.S. Open Cup post hit and minute, quit it. That's not the right way to say that, but that's fine.
Still
How
love
about
it.
Cincinnati? FC Cincinnati at home against Charlotte. Battle for the Queen Cities, and Dean Smith's side come away winners 3-1. Miles Robinson sent off late in that game in the final 20 minutes before he heads over to the Olympics. He's got one more game for Cincinnati, but Charlotte, big time winners 3-1. They're actually going to take on Columbus this week. So tough week in Ohio if you're a Charlotte fan, but maybe you can come away with 6 points, which not many teams can do. New England lost 3-1 at home against Oscar Pereja in Orlando City, who are mounting a second half of the season comeback. DC United 2-1 winners over Nashville. Troy Lesesne really needed that to stop the bleeding, and that is going to be about 9 days before BJ Callahan, you remember that name, U.S. men's national team fans, is going to take over Nashville SC. Ruma Montali has been the interim head coach as of late. FC Dallas 2-0 winners at home over LA Galaxy. The Moose is loose yet again. That's Petar Musa, the $10 million signing from Croatia. And Dallas are the big win over one of the best in the West. Austin FC lose at home against the Seattle Sounders. Who's on the score sheet again? It's J-Mo. Maybe he's a guy who's overperformed for the U.S. men's national team. I don't really think he falls into that category, but I'm just going to throw it out there. 1-0 winners for Seattle. They won in the midweek against Sacramento Republic in U.S. Open Cup as well. Then St. Louis City at home against Vancouver. John Hackworth has been the interim head coach after the dismissal of Bradley Carnell. The Brian White and Ryan Gauld show continues. Vancouver 4-1 winners. They're unbeaten in their last 4. They had a big win in the Canadian Championship midweek over Pacific FC. You didn't have that on your bingo card tonight, Sam Fam. Chicago 0-0 against NYCFC. The Fire continue to be the epitome of mediocrity. Somebody needs to take control of that team that's not named George Heights, who is the sporting director. And let's not forget his really mediocre technical director, Sebastian Peltzer. Houston Dynamo and Minnesota United draw 1-1. Colorado Rapids and Red Bulls also draw 1-1 in the battle of Chris Armas for whoever is going to be potentially the better Chris Armas, Red Bulls or Colorado. We're not going to know until we find out maybe later in MLS Cup, but probably not. Portland, 3-0 winners over RSL. That is a huge win for Phil Neville's group, who have been red hot as of late, arguably one of the hottest teams in Major League Soccer right now, and that's on the back of a 4-1 win against Nashville last Sunday. San Jose Earthquakes fall at the hands of Sporting Kansas City. That was a battle for the bottom of the Western Conference barrel, but Peter Vermees' side have strung together a few wins, and maybe, just maybe, they're going to make a push, but not too hard of a push. This is the MLS hitting and quit a minute after all. LAFC lose at home to the Columbus Crew by a score of 5-1. 5-1, you heard that correctly. A rematch of MLS Cup from a year ago, and Columbus put them to the sword. Cucho Hernandez, Diego Rossi, Christian Ramirez were absolutely sensational. Probably the best performance from any team in a single 90 minutes in Major League Soccer so far this season, and that would do it for match day 26.
Well done. Speaking of the Chicago Fire, I would take Gregg Berhalter as the coach in a New York minute.
It doesn't matter. Whoever is the coach, it could be Pep. If George Heights is selecting his players for him, he will fail. He will not make the postseason. Just telling you how it is.
I love it. I love it. We get the unvarnished truth from you. But while we're here, having a little pillow talk, give us this U.S. Open Cup snuggle session where we just had the quarterfinals. So hit us with it.
All right, so we had double headers on Tuesday and Wednesday this past week. And folks, if you're not supporting your local clubs, whether it's Loudoun United, whether it's Des Moines Menace, whoever it might be, go out and do so. Because if we're going to bitch and moan about how the U.S. Open Cup doesn't have all 29 MLS teams, all 30 next year, then we have to go out and support this amazing tournament, which of course has been one of the longest running soccer tournaments in the world for the past 100 and some odd years. But anyway, 2 doubleheaders Tuesday and Wednesday. So we had Indy 11 upsetting Atlanta United in Kennesaw, Georgia at Fifth Third Bank Stadium, where Kennesaw State's football team plays. We call it action at the fraction. And Indy 11 come away winners by a score of 2-1. And they just flat out beat Atlanta United. It wasn't even a cup set. And then one of the games that I called, Sacramento Republic and Seattle 2-1 winners. And then the doubleheader on Wednesday was Sporting Kansas City and Dallas, 111th minute winner for Sporting Kansas City and Danny Rosero as they beat Dallas by a score of 2-1. And then LAFC just dismantled New Mexico United, who are not really up for the task, by a score, I think it was 3 or 4-1. So the semifinals are set. It is going to be Sporting Kansas City and LAFC, and it is going to be Indy 11 and, oh boy, who was the other team that I was talking about?
What are you talking about?
Sporting.
Did I say Sporting Kansas City in LA? I did.
It's Dallas. Or no, it's not Dallas.
Our boys got to, Dalton's got to clip it. Sorry, let me redo. So the semifinals are set. We're going to have Seattle and LAFC. Seattle will host that game from Starfire in Tacoma. It's not going to be at Lumen. I believe the field is booked for that night for whatever reason. Maybe Celine Dion is in town. I don't know. And then the other semifinal is going to be Sporting Kansas City, and Indy 11 Sporting will host that game. So the semifinals are set, and those will be played on August 27th, I believe.
Well done. Well done. Great snuggle session. All right, boys and girls, we're going to finish it up strong as we always do with stoppage time, where we're not going to hit Ivan Tony's best bets. We're kind of in a weird, there's MLS games, there's some games. Believe me, there are games going on because I'm getting my over bets in on Iceland and, Norwegian Cups and Sweden and all this. But we're going to go straight into everybody's favorite segment, GOAWs. So I got a whole list here. I'm going to go really quick on most of them, but I'm going to give one, my actual GOA, a little bit of a shout out, but I'm going to wait till the end in case you guys take them first. So I'm looking for eye contact here. Who wants to go? We'll go with Mitch. Or yeah. Okay. Well, listen, everybody's ready this week. Mitch, you go. You're on mute though.
So I thought long and hard about my GOA this week because I wanted to give it to kind of encapsulate either Copa America or Euros, as we've just finished up these two phenomenal tournaments. I thought about giving it to Harry Kane for being one of the greatest losers we've seen in this sport. It's almost flooring how much he has lost in his career, yet how individually and statistically successful he's been. So I thought about giving it to him, but I'm not going to give it to him. I thought about giving it to one of those players that I mentioned earlier at the top of the pod, like a James or a Shaqiri, who just come into our lives every 4 years and really fill us with passion for the game, that we're able to see them perform at a high level for like a month and then just fuck off for the next 3.5 years. But I think my ultimate GOA is Fox for the coverage of both the Copa and the Euros. And this is a bad GOA if I haven't been clear enough about that. I do not appreciate being deceived about start times. When you say, and we'll start this at 7 p.m. Eastern and the kickoff is at 8 p.m. Eastern, that's disrespectful of my time, that's disrespectful of my family's time, and I will not stand for it. The yellow card graphic above each of the teams' names on the score, what is that all about?
Score button. Yeah.
The score button, right. What is that all about? What's that for? That has absolutely no significance to the game.
That was made by somebody who is not a real soccer fan.
How does that impact your family, Mitch? How does the yellow cards?
That one impacts my family because my mom asks about it, and I have to tell her with a heavy heart that, Mom, I don't know what that means. I don't know who decided to put that up there. I'm so sorry. That one also impacts my family. I have to hear Alexi Lalas for like a month, and everybody's views on him vary, but just the lack of aura on the panel up there, I never find it to be funny when they laugh. I never find it to be insightful when they try to give insight on the game. It's just there's no synergy amongst the people up there. I almost feel bad for Daniel Sturridge that he has to be the token Englishman up there and like say things and kind of cover for them sometimes. Yeah, overall, my GOA this tournament cycle is Fox. I really, really hope they're able to improve upon it for World Cup, which I'm pretty sure they're going to have the license for. Unsure.
Yeah.
But it's looking like that. So
bring Tyler Terrence on.
Well, I've heard some things about Tyler's employer that I won't go into, but yeah.
I don't think he's going to go into it either. All right, we will go to Tyler Terrence with the next GOA. What you got for us?
2 GOAs. Number 1, Shaqiri still got it. I mean, good Lord Almighty, just dripping with it. I love it.
Are you talking about Shakira or Shaqiri?
Did I say Shaqiri?
I thought you were talking about Shaqiri.
I thought he was too. I was like, are you just trolling Chicago Fire fans right now?
Oh my God, Shakira.
Look at those calves. Still got it.
Jesus. Both of their calves for that matter. I mean, God. No, that's really bad. And then the other one, the news just came down the pipeline, and I'm not knocking my employer. Anybody who's listening for Major League Soccer, I love you. Thank you for my paycheck every other week. I really appreciate it. But like, Chicho Arango just got suspended for 4 games for violating an anti-harassment policy. Fine, fair, like, great. He got suspended. One of the games that counts towards his suspension is the All-Star game. So I just don't like. I thought the whole point was to put in negative reinforcement on stuff that actually matters. Like, yeah, like I'm sure he wants to play in the game and like put on a show, but like that doesn't punish him and his team for him violating the policy. So I'm just curious the thought process that goes on behind that. But anyway, maybe you're trying to. I don't know. But anyway, that's
in a way that kind of helps his team, right? Because he's not going to go out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair. Tommy, who you got for us?
Bielsa for his lovely rant on CONMEBOL. And then I'm gonna throw in like that Darwin, not even Darwin's like fight, just after he got punched and his little like scurry across the aisle. That is what I'm giving a go for. Just the scurry, like where he's like ready to fight. Just that.
He was down to fight. There was no question.
His scurry with his hands up, that was
the little, he's kind of 1 foot, like just he was ready to go. And by the way, he did get sort of, it looked like he got clocked, but people were grabbing his arms. He was kind of in a tough spot there. That whole situation is
props to him. You can call a lot of players fucking crazy for what they do on the field, but he was really about it off the field.
Yes, he was.
Like, that situation as a whole really dire and should not have happened. But individually, my likability for Darwin Nunez has gone up after that.
Yeah, Uruguay, the players, like the initial sort of reaction was like, wow, I can't believe they just did this and all that. The PR meter went all the other way when it came out that apparently they were sort of defending their families and everything. Like the PR meter went from like, wow, you guys are going to get like suspended forever, you're going to get fined, to now being like everybody's sort of in your corner. And I don't even know what CONMEBOL is going to do in terms of suspensions. Whatever they do, they're going to get a lot of heat because everybody hates them anyway right now. But that's a good shout. Very good shout. I'm going to give a couple of honorable mentions. Kieran Trippier's wife, who it seems maybe sort of like up and left him in the middle of the Euros. Like she unfollowed him on Instagram and put out like a very cryptic something on social media. That's a hell of a time to pull that one off. Shout out to the Killers, who did an incredible transition in the middle of their concert. So they were playing in London, and it was the game against Denmark, I believe. And they for the last like 2 minutes of the game, they stopped the concert and put the game on the a couple big screens, and England won the game. Keep in mind, they're playing in London. England won the game, and just within like 2 seconds, they had transitioned from like a big celebration into Mr. Brightside. The vibes at that concert, like putting myself in the English fans' boots for a moment, must have been just absolutely incredible. It doesn't get any better than that. That well done to the Killers and whoever production manager made sure that happened. Last honorable mention, Ramon Xherdan. I don't know. He's the president of the Colombian Football Federation, who, it turns out, it just came out in the last hour or two. He and his son were arrested at the Copa America final. The Ramon Xherdan, the president, was arrested on 3 charges of battery against a quote unquote specific official. I assume that's a security guard. I have absolutely no idea what the situation was, what happened, but I could just sort of imagine like a sort of a bigwig, sort of, I don't know, bitch smacking a security guard and getting in trouble for that. I don't know the situation, but the fact it was just a double whammy for our guy Ramon. Colombia losing the final and getting arrested in Miami. Not good stuff. But my actual GOA, it's a positive one. Keegan Rosenberry, a committed, dedicated, longtime Sam Fam member who is just a great overall dude. He got named to the MLS All-Star team. This is actually his second selection. So he got named to the team All-Star team in 2016, which was his rookie season. He got named as a starter, and that was when he was with Philly. In the years since then, he got traded to Colorado. They've been through some, let's call it, lean years, putting it mildly. And he has just been a consummate professional, working his ass off, keeping his head down, running, doing whatever he needed to do. It sounds like, he's the captain of the team. Guys, I know a lot of Colorado Rapids players. I think there were some other ones that probably should have been on that All-Star team. But anyway, it was great to see Keegan get the named. And that's the second year in a row where, like, one of our real core Sam Fam members, after Timmy Parker last year, also got named to the team. So that's just a great thing. And congrats to Keegan. And have fun at the All-Star game where they're playing Liga MX. I don't know when that is, a couple weeks, I assume. So there we go. There's GOAWs. There's Copa America, U.S. men's national team, post Berhalter, and of course the Euros. We'll be back, I think, next week. We've been on a weird schedule here with the Euros and Copa and all that stuff. Hopefully we'll get back into the real swing of things. And as I've said a couple times, we're going to implement some changes and upgrades, and we'll move forward. So there we go. See you guys next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Mitch, Tommy, not Mikey. We won't give him thanks this time since he had to bail last minute, but Tyler as well. We'll be back next week. Bigger, better, faster, stronger. See you guys then.